Okay, so we're continuing our series on Hilchot, Tzitzit, and Tefillin. We discussed the halachot of Tzitzit, where the derech of the Poskim Ma'arav are going to weigh in on the issue, and we saw it's very consistent with Dat Maran, even though many did not follow Dat Maran. It seemed to be in certain instances like tallit shenafla and tallit and a tallit that was that he took off the tallit and he put it back on. Then you would make a bracha, even though many argue. Now, the truth is, by taking off the tallit and putting it back on, it's more of a chidush, because we find most poskim, they say it's a safek brachot, and we haven't seen too many people being noeg this way. But I'm just saying that somebody who makes a bracha, yesh lo al ma lismoch, which is data Shulchan Aruch, and Rabbi Rafael Berdugo says we do make the bracha like dat Maran. I wanted to point out that the Shulchan Aruch in Hilchot Tzitzit also writes in Seif Chet, towards the end, what would be the halacha if somebody sleeps with his talit on? Halan betalito balayla tzarich levarech alav baboker. And we spoke about this halacha, right? We said that if somebody sleeps with his talit, since Laila is lav zman tefillin, it's lav zman tzitzit, so in the morning he'd have to make a new bracha if he slept with his talit on. And the Mishnah points out that it's an obvious machloket rishonim between the Rambam and the Rosh, whereas the Rambam understands it's not talui in the type of beged. The Rosh understands that it's talui in beged yom, then you're chayiv even balayla. Beged laila, you're not chayiv even during the day. So according to the Rosh, you'd have to, there was no hefsek, because it's a beged yom that you're wearing at night, so there's no hefsek. So the truth is, the Kaf HaChaim brings from the Bet Yosef, not from the Bet Yosef, the Kaf HaChaim brings from the Shalmit Tzibur that he once saw. Maybe that Maran was choser on this, we don't know. But we were being done. Is it possible to say to make a bracha in such a case? We don't find too many acharonim that say that one could make a bracha like Maran in this case. So Rabbi Yosef Peres from Panama sent me last week, that the Sefer Divrei Yosef from Rabbi Yosef Berdugo writes behedya that somebody sleeps with his talit, in the morning he could make a bracha, because because Maran says to make a bracha. And even though there are those who argue, says Rabbi Divrei Yosef, we don't say safek brachot le'akel neged Maran. So this, we were very happy when we found this. This reinforces the shita of being posek like dat Maran. So definitely somebody who makes a bracha in such a case, yeshal ma lismoch. It's a big mitzvah. It's a very big mitzvah. Okay, I want to skip to Hilchot Tefillin. There's a very fascinating halacha in Hilchot Tefillin that I would like to discuss, which is in Hilchot Tefillin Siman Chafei Seif Hey. Shulchan Aruch says, Yaniach shel yad techila, you put on the talit, the tefillin shel yad first, v'yivarech le'aniach, ve'achar kach yaniach shel rosh, and then you put on the tefillin shel rosh. Ve'lo yivarech, and don't make a bracha. Ki im bracha achat leshtehem, only make one bracha for both. And that's the halacha, that even though you would think it's one mitzvah, but no, even the Rambam counts Tefillin shel Rosh, Tefillin shel Yad as two separate mitzvot. And even though it's two separate mitzvot, one bracha is for both. It's a bracha she'ena tzricha to make on a bracha on Tefillin shel Rosh. So one bracha is for both. Nevertheless, v'yesh omrim, some say, levarech al shel Rosh al mitzvah Tefillin, afilu lo hefsik bentayim. the famous opinion of the Rishonim that to make 2 berachot, one on the Tefillin Shel Yad, one Tefillin Shel Rosh. And even if you would say it's 1 mitzvah, many Rishonim understand it's 2 mitzvot, in two different berachot in the Chelkei mitzvah. It's a big chidush. But that's the way the Rosh brings, that there are those who make 2 brachot. V'chen pashat minhag b'bnei Ashkenaz shemevarchin shte berachot. And this is the minhag b'bnei Ashkenaz, that they indeed make 2 berachot. V'tov lomar tamid achar bracha shneya baruch shem kivod malchuto le'olam va'ed. Fascinating. That although one makes 2 berachot, the second beracha is still pending a safek, so it's good to correct oneself. You know you're getting yourself into a problem. It's good to say baruch shem kivod malchuto le'olam va'ed. Fascinating. It's the only example, as I know of, that you'll say behedya a bracha b'shimu malchut, and you say baruch shem kivod malchuto le'olam va'ed. That is the Rosh. I want to speak about 2 points on this halacha. Number 1 is there is a famous Pri Megadim on this halacha. The Pri Megadim says like this: what happens if a person is listening to somebody else saying a bracha on the Tefillin Shel Rosh? Says the Pri Megadim in Eshel Avram, yesh lehistapek im ya'ane amen achar mitzvat al mitzvat b'shomea mechavero. Why? Because it's written in the end of Siman Resh Tet Vav, en onim amen achar bracha levatala. You don't make a amen. You don't say amen after bracha levatala. And over here it's a suffix. Hare, it's a suffix bracha. That's why you're saying suffix bracha. That's why you're saying baruch shem kivod malchuto le'olam va'ed. So if you're going to listen to somebody else make the bracha, you don't answer amen. Pele. Because of this, there are those who write that one should make the bracha of Tefillin Shel Rosh bilachash. That's how Ashkenazim do it. So that way somebody else doesn't have to say an amen on the bracha. This, based on this Pri Megadim, Rav Ovadia Yosef in many places writes a phenomenal chidush, a chidush that people who hear it are shocked. He writes the following. This is in Yechavedat, Chelek Daled, Siman Lamed Aleph, Yebiomer, Chelek Aleph, Siman Yudaled, Chelek Tet, Siman Lamed Chet. Different places, the Yebiomer writes that if a person listens to somebody else who makes a bracha that they hold that they shouldn't be making the bracha, they shouldn't be answering amen. For example, he has a few examples. Number 1 is a Sephardi who's listening to an Ashkenazi making a bracha on Hallel of Rosh Chodesh. So a Sephardi who's in an Ashkenazi minyan, and he hears an Ashkenazi making a bracha on Hallel of Rosh Chodesh, he shouldn't answer amen. Doesn't answer amen, Pasha. If a Sephardi hears an Ashkenazi making a bracha on, I'll give you a few examples. He hears him making a bracha on a woman making a bracha on a mitzvah taseh shazman grama. Not a Sephardi lady, an Ashkenazi lady making a bracha on lulav. Since the Rambam says not to make a bracha, so he shouldn't answer amen. If somebody hears, according to Rav Ovadia Yosef, if he hears them saying a bracha yiru enenu, shouldn't answer amen. I mean, for sure in Eretz, I think he's talking about Eretz Yisrael. Somebody from Eretz Yisrael sent me a bunch of cases where, according to Rav Ovadia, he found from Yalkut Yosef, or he asked Rav Yitzchak Yosef, or it's because it comes out like you have to know in what cases you answer amen. So I'll give you a few examples that where Rav Ovadia would say not to answer amen, just to get an idea. A Sephardi who hears a haftara, this he was asked in Yabia Omer, that a balkore was a balkore in the Bet Knesset Yishurun. That's somewhere in Yerushalayim. It's a Yekishul, and if it's a Sephardi balkore and they want him to read the Megillat Ruth or Megillat or the Shara Megillot, the Ashkenazim read Beklaf, and they make a bracha, he shouldn't answer amen. A woman who's going to make a bracha on Tkiyat Shofar, he's not going to be able to answer he's not going to be able to answer Amen. A Sephardi who hears Shechianu on the second day of Rosh Hashanah, the Sephardim don't say Shechianu, the Ashkenazim say Shechianu. He writes that they shouldn't answer Amen because according to his opinion, they shouldn't answer Amen. Ad kedei kach, it's written that a Sephardi who hears from an Ashkenazi who is lighting the menorah, and this Ashkenazi has parents who could light for him, the Ashkenazi holds he could light mitzad mehadrin, but the Sephardi shouldn't make a bracha, so he shouldn't answer Amen to the bracha. These are all documented where Rav Ovadia would say not to answer Amen. Now, what is Rav Ovadia Yosef basing himself on? He has the following logic. He says, Hare, the Pri Megadim says that if you hear somebody else making a bracha, so and you're mesupik, he's here, you don't know whether to answer. You shouldn't answer Amen. Now, Rav Ovadia Yosef extends it a step further. Let's say that person is not misupak, but you are not going to make that bracha. Says Rav Ovadia, for you that's called a safek. Now the Bir Halacha speaks about this case exactly. The Bir Halacha in Siman Resh Tedvav, and the Bir Halacha says that if somebody is making a bracha because he has what to rely on, I'll read you the exact lashon of the Bir Halacha. Im echad noeg levarach kedea shelo nidchit legamre min poskim, af al pi she'enu chayav min adin la'anot amen safek amen lekula mikol makom en baze isur. So the Bir Halacha is talking about a case where he's noeg like an opinion that wasn't totally nidche, and he brings an example like a bracha Baruch Ata Hashem Chai Olamim. It doesn't Baruch Chai Olamim. It says Baruch Ata Hashem Chai Olamim. The Yerushalmi says that. So based on this, Rav Ovadia says, even though the Bir Halacha says that you can answer Amen, I found a Mefurish Rambam in Teshuvot that says not that way. What is the Teshuvot Rambam? The Teshuvot Rambam is talking about the following case. Siman Pei Daled in Teshuvot Rambam. The Rambam says that if somebody is listening to somebody else making a bracha on Purim on Yom Yudalid and Yom Tedvav. So on Yom Tedvav, you could only make a bracha if it's a year that was Mukefet Choma Yeshua bin Nun. So they had a certain city in Tzur that they weren't sure whether it's Mukefet Choma Miyimot Yeshua bin Nun. So in that area, says the Rambam, they're not allowed to make a bracha on Yudalid and Yom Tedvav. They're not allowed to make a bracha on Tedvav. And if they do, it's a safek bracha she'enat tzricha, it's a safek bracha levatala, and you know how chamur bracha levatala is, even deoraita. And he says, not only that, you can't even answer Amen on a safek bracha. So says Rav Ovadia Yosef, the Rambam seems to say over here, not like the Bir Halacha, the Rambam says that anything that's a safek bracha, you shouldn't answer Amen. So over here, if all my cases, Hallel is a safek bracha. Listening to a woman say a bracha on the mitzvah taseh she'azman grama is a safek bracha, and I also hold that you shouldn't be making a bracha on the Megillah, so that's also a safek bracha. All of those cases, it's a safek bracha. One shouldn't answer Amen. That is the opinion of Rav Ovadia Yosef, and it's quite a well-known opinion, and it's something that when people hear it, it's something new to them, because hare, there is an inyan not to answer Amen levatala. Now, let's done on this chidush. Is there a makom le'alacha? And what would be the halacha for a bnei, not only let's say a bnei Sfarad in Eretz Yisrael who makes a bracha on Rosh Chodesh? Right? This is what Rabbi Shalom Misasos posek. I mentioned in Magen Avot that Rabbi Yashiv was posek for a Moroccan minion in Eretz Yisrael that wasn't saying halal with the bracha on Rosh Chodesh. He told them that if your minhag was to say bracha on Rosh Chodesh in Eretz, and you didn't do it because you thought in Eretz Yisrael you're not mechuyev, you change back with a bracha, and it's not, and you don't need a hatarat nedarim because it was called a minhag b'ta'ut, not to make a bracha on halal Rosh Chodesh in Eretz Yisrael. In Chutz La'aretz, everybody agrees that a bracha is made. The question in Eretz Yisrael, he says this is a minhag b'ta'ut, and therefore you have to continue making a bracha. So we bring in Magen Avot many opinions that held to make a bracha on Rosh Chodesh. So if a Moroccan makes a bracha on Halal and Rosh Chodesh, and in Edut, somebody from Edut HaMizrach hears that bracha, so Rav Avad Yosef, if he says on an Ashkenazi Halal, you should say Amen, Akal V'chomer in this case. But here, I wanted to dan on his ra'ayot, and I wanted to say, number one is the following. The Pri Megadim says explicitly in Siman Kuf Chav Dalid that ladies who make a bracha on mitzvah taseh she'azman grama, for sure you answer Amen. You answer Amen. Now, even though it's a machloket, hare, according to the Rambam, you don't make a bracha, but the Pri Megadim says, well, we hold that women could make a bracha, so of course you can answer Amen you can answer Amen. But the Rav Shlomo Kluger in his Shilot Tshuvot Evlicha Shlomo Chelik Aleph Or HaChaim Siman Nun Zayin says, I don't understand why the Pri Megadim had a safek by Birkat Tefillin even. He says, hare, the reason why a person is not allowed to answer Amen is because it's Amen Yetoma. If there's a reason why this person is making a bracha, that's not called an Amen Yetoma. Hare, we say Amen many times in our tefillah. As long as there's a reason why a person is saying this Amen, that's not called an Amen Yetoma. And furthermore, in a case where, in the case of the Pri Megadim, there's a very big difference between the Pri Megadim and any other case that we've been talking about till now. In the Pri Megadim, hare, somebody making a bracha on Tefillin Shel Rosh, he himself is saying Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuto L'Olam Va'ed. That means he himself is misupak. There's a suffix in the bracha. Says the Pri Megadim, there's a suffix in the bracha. Don't answer Amen. Yesh li stapek. Don't answer Amen. And even on that, the Elif Decha Shlomo says no. There's enough of a reason. Of course, you can answer Amen. But that's in the Pri Megadim's case. But in a case where somebody, an Ashkenazi, is making a bracha on Rosh Chodesh, hare, his Rabotav tell him 100% he should make a bracha. That's not called a bracha levatala for him. So why wouldn't you be able to answer Amen? The Rambam was talking about a case where the Mevarech and the person who was answering Amen holds also the Mevarech shouldn't make a bracha. Hayitachin, somebody would come to you and ask you, am I allowed to make, an Ashkenazi comes to you, should I make a bracha on Rosh Chodesh? You tell him yes, that's your minhag. But you're not going to answer Amen? Tell him yes. So you're holding it's not a bracha. The chefts of the bracha is not a bracha levatala. So why wouldn't you be able to answer Amen? And that's the pshat in the Bir Halacha. The Rambam was talking about that the bracha itself is misupeket. There's no raya from the Rambam. The Pri Megadim is talking about that the bracha itself is misupeket. Ve'araya, you say Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. But when the bracha is not misupek at all, when there's a reason why you're saying the bracha, and there's and you're somech al pi rabotav, why would you not be able to answer Amen? Shelot Tshuvot Emek Yehoshua of Rav Yeshua Maman Chelik Bet Siman Zayin points this out. This is obvious chiluk. I just saw today Rav Ben Zion Abashol also and Chelik Gimel of Or Letzion also says explicitly you're allowed to answer Amen to somebody else's bracha if they have what to be a somech on. And I saw afterwards that in his askama to a sefer Banim Chavivim, Rav Yaakov Chaim Sofer brings that he heard from Rav Ben Zion Abashol that it's not a raya from the Rambam, because in the Rambam the person himself and the person making the bracha, it was a suffix. He shouldn't have made that bracha. So that's not domit to somebody who doesn't have a suffix and he's making the bracha. Furthermore, there's a halacha in Siman Resh Ted Vav that if a goy makes a bracha, then you are allowed to answer Amen. You're allowed to answer Amen. Onim Amen achar akum im shama bracha mipiv. So an Ashkenazi who is somech al pi rabotav, you're not allowed to answer Amen. And an akum you are? What are you going to tell me? That the akum, 100% ledeotav, he's allowed to make a bracha. But an Ashkenazi also ledeotav, like you're not allowed to tell an Ashkenazi to be noeg. For him, it's he's not doing a bracha levatola. That's what you would tell him yourself. There's one raya that Rav Ovadia brings from the Sefer Yachinu Boaz, who was a grandson of the Tashbetz. He was the son of Rashbash in Siman Kuf Yud Chet, that he writes not to answer Amen after Kiddush in Bet Knesset of the night. But that also, he held that you shouldn't be making that bracha, not you, not him. It's not that that person is what to be somech on. He held that that for whatever reason, look at the tshuva there, that shouldn't be done. Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach also writes this in Minchat Shlomo. There's a Shlotu Tshuva in Minchat Shlomo, Tanyana Chelik Zayin. He writes, Yitachen, to say that those who are noeg like the Shulchan Aruch, that don't make a bracha on Hallel, well, Shulchan Aruch of Minhag Eretz Yisrael, they can't say Amen. Also, based on that, he wants to say that if somebody has a suffix of a bracha, he should be able to make a bracha in English, because then he doesn't have lotisa. So, and just like you answer Amen ala suffix, you should make this bracha ala suffix. So, for him, it's pashut that you answer Amen ala suffix. Also, there's a Shirotu Tshuvot Yain Atov, which is Rav Yitzchak Nisim. He was the previous Rishon LeZion in Siman Chav Daled. He heard that a Rav said not to answer Amen on a halal of Ashkenazim. It could be he heard this psak for Rav Yosef. I'm not sure, but I assume that's who he heard from. And he says, based on this, you're going to tell me that if the Yosef Ometz writes that Ashkenazi Sefer Torah is pasul for Sfaradim, so Sfaradim also can't make a bracha on Ashkenazi Sefer Torah, and he can't answer Amen to somebody who makes a bracha on it. So you'll tell me that Sefer Torah we hold is okay. Otherwise, according to Rav Avad, you can't answer an aliyah that somebody is making. But so maybe that's what Rav Avad Yosef would say. But the actual concept, Rav Nisim says, if you have a rayat what to be so mechan, there's no question about it. He wrote to the Har Tzvi. If you look at the Har Tzvi, Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank, he has a teshuvah about this, and he also says, I agree with you. And in the Maftichot, it's written to Rav Yitzchak Nisim. Look at the Maftichot; it's written there. So you have all these cases that seem very clear. Not only that, I found recently a teshuvah from Rav Meir Mazuz in Beit Ne'eman. He says, a Sephardi who makes a bracha on Halal on Rosh Chodesh, because he says, there's 40 Rishonim, and all the Sidurei Sfaradim and Edut Mizrach that are old, that all say to make a bracha on Halal on Rosh Chodesh. Writes Rav Meir Mazuz. So a Sephardi who makes a bracha on Halal Rosh Chodesh, you can't answer Amen? Of course you can. So I think that's pretty clear that it's a very, very difficult halacha to say that if somebody has what to be somech on, you can't answer Amen. V'chi gara migoy, or v'chi gara mikatan, that's higia lechinuch. So this is also lo gara mikatan higia lechinuch. You answer Amen on his bracha. You can answer Amen on somebody who's somech al pi rabotav. Okay, and it seems to be that this should be this is the accepted halacha. Rav Sofer brings over there in his Askama that he heard from Rav Ezra Atiyah, and that Rav Ezra Atiyah held this way, and Rav Tzadka, and Rav Yosef Ades, the Shar Rosh Yeshivot. So it's definitely it's a b'chudash halacha. And the truth is, somebody who follows Rav Avad Yosef, like all his psakim, it's a very confusing thing. To what point could he make a bracha, could he not? Like I mentioned, even on him listening to somebody else's menorah, he can't make a bracha. It's a fascinating subject. Okay, that is regarding answering Amen on the Tefillin Shel Rosh and what came out of that halacha. There's an interesting minhag that is not recorded in any minhagim sefer kedumim, but I remember this minhag. It was by myself in my bar mitzvah as well. Is that the first time that one wears tefillin, so they tell you to be mafsik between the Tefillin Shel Yad and the Tefillin Shel Rosh, and you should make a bracha on the Tefillin Shel Rosh. Interesting minhag. They tell you to be over on a safek bracha she'ina tzricha. And this is what happened by my bar mitzvah, and I've spoken to many people, that's what happened by theirs. And it's not written anywhere, this minhag. I was trying to figure out where does this minhag come from. So the truth is, it's not only that they tell you to be mafsik, they call up everybody to have their turn to help you put on the krichot. I don't know if you ever saw this before. They call everyone up to help the bar mitzvah boy put on his krichot for the first time, and then he makes a bracha of Tefillin Shel Rosh. Interesting. So where does this minhag come from? So there's Rabbi Yosef Peretz suggested that there is a sefer Kaf Naki. Kaf Naki was Rav Khalifa ben Malka, who's buried in the city of Agadir. In page 15 over there, in page Tedvav, it's recently printed, the sefer. He was Ben Doro Shel Achida, great sefer. He writes that when a person is leaving Bet HaKnesset with his tefillin, he should walk with his tefillin outside of the house, And then he should take off the Tefillin Shel Rosh because he's going to pass by dirty places. And then he should put back by the Bet HaKnesset, put back the Tefillin Shel Rosh, and he should make a bracha because he was mafsik. And also, he says, Velachush leshitat Rabbeinu Tam. What does that mean, lachush leshitat Rabbeinu Tam? Which Rabbeinu Tam? It's the Rabbeinu Tam that says you should make a bracha on Tefillin Shel Rosh. So, it seems to be that there is an inyan to be choshesh for this opinion of make a bracha on Tefillin Shel Rosh. Normally, one bracha is motzi both. But when you have an opportunity, you could be yotzeh. So over here, there's an opportunity for the first time of wearing tefillin that he should make a bracha on Tefillin Shel Rosh. The truth is that I think that you combine both minhagim together, you're fine. I think what happens is that they wanted to be mechabed people to help a na'ar shegia lemitzvot. And I saw a sefer called Minhage Bet Abba who brought this minhag down. It's a recent sefer. And he says that maybe it's based on the Shara Kavanot. The Shara Kavanot says that when somebody puts on the krichot, it's keneged sheva ne'arot haruuyot latet la. So it's like seven mishartim that a person has. So the first time that a person wears tefillin, so ki'ilu people come to be mechabeb the mitzvah, and they help putting different people, the krovim, the yedidim, they call the uncle or whatever. So there's a reason why they want to be mechabed people. But once they have an inyan to mechabed people, it's not called a bracha she'ena tzricha anymore because there's a hefsek. There's a reason for the hefsek, so I'm mechabed the people. And your metzaref, the kaf naki, that there was an inyan to be yotzet tefillin shel rosh, you can hear that the minhag is what to be so mechan. And that's why it seems to be that there was such a minhag that they wanted to be mechabed the people, memela. And it could be, I thought that maybe also there's an inyan for the first time you make a bracha to make a tefillin shel rosh, you make the special bracha on mitzvah tefillin, like those rishonim, one time in your life. So I thought that that the minhag would have to what to be so mechan. So that is regarding that halacha about the tefillin shel rosh. I think so I think more or less we covered a few inyanim of Hilchot Tefillin. Next time we'll discuss some more details. Maybe we'll have an opportunity to discuss also the inyan of Tzurat Otiyot and the way that letters were written. We'll see if that's next week or after that. But Al Kol Panim, that was for today. Chazak u'Baruch.